Thanks, yeah, that's definitely a medley of some fun tunes. You know what? Believe it or not, this is something a drummer almost never requests. You could lower the bass drum in the side fill here, right? Whoever asked for that? It's a little overpowering.
That's a first.
Yeah, a little better, even lower than that. Cool. All right, so yeah, that started out with No More Mr. Nice Guy, and there was Schools Out in there, Feed My Frankenstein. There was a deeper cut called Muscle of Love, which has actually a time change at the end. I don't do any of that weird playing with the time thing when I'm playing with the band. You know, I was doing like no, they would look at me really funny if I did that. Don't do that on the gig. Don't throw the band. Even if you're right, you're wrong, you know? Yeah, but since it's a drum clinic and it's like a one-man show, have some fun with it, right? So, I got another track, diving more into the fusion side of things. A long time ago, I did a record with Jennifer Batten. She played guitar for Michael Jackson from like the Bad tour up until the Dangerous tour, about 10, 12 years. We did this really cool record called Jennifer Batten's Tribal Rage. It was a trio. It was a lot of linear drumming. How many people are familiar with the concept of linear drumming? You've probably done it. You don't even know it. You've played it. It just generally refers to the idea that no two sound sources are being hit at the same time. So if you were to play like what's called the Bonham triplets, you know, right, left foot, or left, right foot, right, left foot, this. And you start voicing it. Technically that's linear, because you're not hitting anything together at the same time. So you could play that over 16th notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And you're still playing linear. And yeah, it is funny and weird to count over that, but you get used to it. It's It's like using your voice as a fifth lid. It's actually very important to gaining independence. But I digress. Linear drumming is a very favorite style of drumming for me because there's so many possibilities. It's all about the voicing. What is voicing? It's just taking a pattern and experimenting with it around the kit, because each one of these is a different voice. You can do it with a single stroke roll. See, I'm voicing the single stroke roll around the kit. If anyone's had drum teachers, you know, from the beginning, you're working on your singles, your doubles, then you're playing paradiddles. And you start voicing that accent. Right, you don't want to just stay on the snare. You want to get proficient first on the snare, but then you start moving it around and you'll accidentally play some cool stuff. I mean, how cool is that when you're in the drum room and you stumble on something, you're like, oh my God, that's awesome. What did I just do, you know? We've all had those moments where you discover something. So anyways, linear drumming was a big part of this record. I'm going to shut up and play. I'm talking too much. We're here to play today. So this is a song, it's called The Swarm, because the bass line sounds like a swarm of bees. It's actually pretty cool. Jennifer Batten's Tribal Rage. think I need a sip of water. Yeah, finally getting warmed up here. You know what? While I take a breather, is there any questions, comments? All right, I see some hands already. Yes, sir. You right in the back there. Shout it out. Yeah.
What does your practice routine look like when you're touring?
Well,
Like this?
well, you know, the other day, I wanted to practice for this a little bit. It's totally different from playing relatively the same set every night with Alice. We don't jam. It's like a Broadway show with blood. That's what I call it. There's cues, there's props. So what do I do to get in this headspace? I actually talked to somebody at Memphis Drum Shop, and they were good enough to set me up with a room there. If not that, I'll find a rehearsal spot on a day off, or there's always friends that can hook me up with some friend that lives in town. That's happened. But it can be tough on tour. I got a pad or a pad kit in the dressing room to drive the band crazy while I warm up, which I love doing. Driving them crazy, I love doing. But yeah, it's not always easy. Anybody else? Yeah, in the back. Yes, sir.
Can you play jazz? Or like swing of some sort?
Do I play jazz? Well, I do gigs around town in Los Angeles that are more of the jazz fusion variety. There's a club, it's a world famous hole in the wall called the Baked Potato. I've been going there since I was 16. I was watching Vinnie Colaiuta and David Garibaldi and Greg Bissonette and all the cats up close, 10 feet away. That was school, you know? And then later, much later, I started playing there, and it's always a challenge. I've never done the more straight ahead type of gigs, but I do absolutely have influences from that genre. You know, I think of like Tony Williams and Elvin Jones. You can see the connection between Elvin Jones and, say, John Bonham. He was definitely inspired by Elvin. So it's important to listen to that, even if it's not something that you'll do as a gig. It's gonna make you more well-rounded as a player. Anybody else?
Right here.
Right here.
Hi, I'm Samantha.
Hi, Samantha.
So we run a program called Play It Forward, so part of the raffles today go to that.
I heard you talking about that.
Thank you. So we're wondering, what advice would you give a younger person that's just getting into drums and rhythm, and what advice would you lead them to?
Well, you know, it is important to get a really good teacher. And I know that's not always easy depending on the city that you live in. And there's a lot of instruction online, but I heard Matthew, I believe, talking earlier about how YouTube is great, but it's also terrible because there's some really good instruction, and then there's just some straight up clowns that have never done a gig in their life, and they're showing you what's up when they might not have any business doing that. So there's definitely trusted sites. I would say reading music is so important. Let me tell you, if I didn't read music, I wouldn't be playing with Alice Cooper. That's true. The first thing I ever did for him was remaking Alice songs note for note. Alice re-sang it. They licensed it to any movie or video game. So if you hear School's Out, it's something new. That's our version. But, you know, getting back to the point, it's about reading music. You know, I subbed for Tommy Lee and Motley Crue on 7 hours notice. It was all about making charts, reading music. I had the music stand there. It's not writing out note for note, but it's a roadmap that involves reading 8th notes, quarter notes, 16th notes. It's not that hard. You know, I try to tell it to kids. It's not like you're learning a new language. There's only so many note values and the corresponding rests. Get on it. You don't want to just be one of those drummers that plays by ear. You know, you won't really know what you're saying. It's like when a band, say Guns N' Roses, goes to like Japan, you know, and they're playing Sweet Child of Mine, and everybody's singing along to Sweet Child of Mine, except they don't know what they're saying. They couldn't have a conversation in English. They're just phonetically pronouncing these words. That's what being a non-reading drummer can be like, you know? It's this kind of watered down facsimile of what you're hearing, you know, but there are some great self-taught drummers out there that don't read. That's definitely true, but I'm always on the side of reading. That's important starting out. It's like eating your vegetables of drumming, learning to read.
That is very great advice. Thank you very much.
Sure. Anybody else? Right here.
Pushing yourself forward or thinking about the next thing, whether it's on the other side or playing.
What do I do to keep pushing myself forward? Booking drum clinics. Well, it makes you, there's no other kind of drum solo other than what you hear at a drum clinic sometimes, ostinatos, and sometimes you've been doing a certain few things too long and you want to develop some new ideas, like when a comic has to come up with new material, everyone's already heard the jokes, it forces you to keep going and keep trying to innovate. I always want to listen to different styles. There's even students of mine that have turned me on to some of the newer acts that they listen to, because it's impossible to hear every new artist now. There's so much. So you got to have an open mind, and when you take a gig that's slightly outside of your comfort zone, that can be a good thing. You will improve as a musician. That's a question I ask a lot. Are we drummers or are we musicians? You gotta choose sometimes. You can be a drummer that just rips around the kid and comes home after work. That's great. But if you want to actually collaborate with people, play in a band, you have to think of yourself more as a musician. So listening and playing different styles, playing along to records, that's practice time well spent. For sure. Anybody else out there? What's that?
Right here. Hey, is there a booth here where I can buy your left hand?
I hear you, I can't see that. Oh.
I want your left hand, man. Your left hand is amazing. How do your left hand, you train yourself? You're right-handed, obviously.
I'm right-handed. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're asking about left hand. I was in marching band in high school. That definitely helped. We were warming up for like an hour every day with those big Rob Carson DC-10 drumsticks or Regal Tip Quantum set. I should mention only the Regal Tip because I've been a Regal Tip artist for a long, long time. Learning, believe it or not, a lot of Latin material. One of my other mentors besides Greg Bissonette was Chuck Silverman. Anybody familiar with Chuck Silverman? Yeah, we unfortunately lost him a couple years ago. But he had me playing a lot of these hi-hat parts with the left hand, and the right hand would move around the kid. I think that had something to do with it, sure. Yeah, you want to keep your hands at least even. We all have a dominant hand, and with the eighth notes, it's generally going to be the right hand, but there could be exceptions. Some people think I'm ambidextrous. I'm not. There's just certain things that are left. You don't want to force anything. Certain things I do left-handed for some reason. Don't question it, right?
I think you're ambidextrous.
What's that?
I think you're ambidextrous.
I wouldn't play a full-on left-handed kid. I mean, I've been forced to, sitting in at some place. It's a challenge. Yeah, good to try sometimes. Anybody else out there with any questions? Oh, right here. I forget. I don't know. No, probably, well, I'm 47 now. I've been playing since I was 11, so, wow, 36 years. Thanks for reminding me. No, I'm kidding. Too long. No, but always growing, always learning. You never stop. Even Buddy Rich was doing newer stuff back in the 70s and 80s. He's out there playing, and he was improving. You know, goes to show you, it's a never-ending journey. Is there anybody else? No, not yet. Maybe someday. Over here?
What was your favorite thing to transcribe?
Favorite thing to transcribe? I haven't been that full-on transcription nerd, so I haven't done a ton of that. You're talking like whole songs?
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever did that. I always admired people that did. There's a guy, he transcribes for Drum Magazine, Brad Schluter. He's transcribed some things of mine. I'm like, wow, man, I wouldn't want to do that. That's work. No, just because you got to listen to it over and over and over again. And I remember there were guys that were transcribing Steve Gadd's drum solo on Steely Dan's Asia. You know, I'm like, man, you're tough. Pretty cool. So I've transcribed little parts, beats. You know, a student would come in years ago and I want to figure out what's going on here, and I listen and write it out, at least what I thought it was. It's good for reading, that's for sure. Your reading chops, they go like this. Anybody else? I saw another, yeah. What's that? How to get influenced to play. It's such a typical answer. Like, you know, my friend's older brother across the street had Rush. Yeah, big surprise, right? But it was exit stage left, and there was the drum solo. We were out in the driveway playing basketball, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. You know, I went out and I bought that exit stage left the next day with my allowance. And then there was Zeppelin, same deal. And I always went to the live records first, because the live records, it was kind of a greatest hits, and there was a drum solo usually. So I got Led Zeppelin's Song Remains the Same, you had the Moby Dick drum solo. Those are what made me want to start. And I was in beginning music class in middle school. Somehow I got put in there. I don't even remember how. But I'm like, I want to play drums. The kid across the street from me has drums, and he's cool. I want to be like that guy. I just loved Rush and Zeppelin. You know, my parents were, back when your parents looked at that and thought, what is happening to my son? You know, now they bond over going to a Rush or, you know, an Alice show, Motley Crue, whatever. It's very strange to see that, but back then, rock and roll, it was the rebellion of it all. But, you know, I was in this class in middle school, and they had a hat, and you had to pick numbers out of the hat, and whoever got the right number got to play drums, because every kid wanted to play drums. And you couldn't have that. You know, if I picked the wrong number, I would have been doing a trombone clinic right now. And there'd be nobody here. But I picked the right number, and you know, major crossroads in life, I didn't even realize it. So, might not have ever started. My folks got me a kit, they didn't know what they were in for, the neighbors didn't know, got the cops called on me for the noise, but that's how it started. Anybody else, any other questions I saw over here? Did I get to do the roller coaster? Everybody asked that. I didn't do the roller coaster part during the show. That's his thing, you know, Tommy's wearing a headset mic, and it's his personality, you know, what's up, effers, what's up, you know, and that whole thing. And what would I do if I was up, what's up, I'm subbing for Tommy, you know, and just, it would be strange if I did the coaster during the show, but I did ride it during the daytime. All those guys in Motley Crue were totally cool. I felt Tommy's pain, because I have had an injury where there had to be a sub for a few weeks for me. I subbed for Tommy for a week. 5 shows of pulling double duty, and that was quite a week. But I rode the coaster during the day. At one point I asked Tommy, I'm like, I just got one question. Can I get a ride on the coaster? He goes, oh man, you gotta try it, you gotta try it. And so it's hard, because you get strapped in, and the harness, it's all here. And you start going upside down, and you can't breathe. It knocks the wind out of you, and you gotta still be playing. That was the hardest part, not being totally upside down. But it's on YouTube. My drum tech took video of it, and he had the Pearl E Pro, the pads, so they weren't turned on. But I played upside down. Whoever thought you'd get to do that, you know? But yeah, all of them, extremely cool, crazy experience. Anybody else? Anybody else out there in the back? I saw a hand raised. No? Okay. Maybe I'll just do a little more playing. What time we got? How we doing?
Bueller, anyone?
12 minutes.
We got 12
And
minutes.
we actually started on time today. I can't believe it. These guys are on it. No, thanks again. Coke and Art Factory. First annual St. Louis drum show. I'm honored to be here for the first one. Yeah, thanks to Jeff and Daniel for helping set up and everything. Okay, so, you know, we're talking about influences. Someone asked me about that earlier. I want to try something here. I've got this thing I've played to a few times in clinic. It literally is a medley of a lot of my influences. A lot of the stuff I came up on. And it could have been like, you know, from the 60s up until now, but that was too much. I decided to focus mostly on the 70s and the 80s. Mostly. Kind of keep it in that zone. So this is it's an influences medley I put together with my badass studio buddy Roy. And there's click tracks all in it, which is important. That's another thing about, let me just sidestep this thing for a second and say, practicing with a metronome every day. You want to be taken seriously, you want to be professional, semi-pro, whatever, you got to practice that metronome every day. It's happening live, studio. How many people said they're going to the Alice show tonight? Okay, there's a few people. So there are some songs I'm playing to a metronome to. We're not running tracks, everybody's singing for real. We don't have any canned vocals, but some songs just work with a metronome, like $1 Billion Babies, Feed My Frankenstein. You figure it out as you go. Some songs don't work with a metronome, they need to ebb and flow a little bit. But that's part of the professional side that I like to discuss at clinics like this, the real world stuff, the politics behind it, getting the gigs and how things happen. I'll be sticking around for a while after. Definitely, we're skipping sound check today. We're lazy. We don't want to do it, but we're lucky enough. We got these in-ear monitors where it goes all the way in your ear, and it's consistent every night. It's more or less the same. So we got a killer crew, guys. We are so lucky. Alice is the nicest guy, the coolest boss. I can tell you about some other gigs with some bosses that ain't so nice, but I won't, because we got cameras rolling. But all right, let me see if I can get this medley thing going.